Jar Jar Binks. You are listening to Behind the Lens.
Now, because you have direct.
And what was that, Brian? Yes, folks, this is Behind the Lens. And who knows what Brian is doing in the sound booth today. He's just all verklempt over the fact that we are getting closer and closer to Rogue One. But for those of you just tuning in, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with producers, directors, writers, actors, composers, cinematographers, choreographers, distributors, classic film legends. We're here every Monday, 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Adrenaline Radio and also adviceradio.com. And if you miss us live, you can catch us 24/7. Every show is archived as a podcast, available on my website, moviesharkdeblore.com, on the Adrenaline Radio website, a few other choice places, and every Tuesday we are on iTunes. Plus, hang in there because we're shooting. We shoot every show with a 2-camera and a post-production video, which is generally out somewhere 10 days after the show, depending on how fast the mail or FedEx can get it to our lovely editor Lydia on the East Coast, and she can get it all put together and out for us. But glad you're listening. Tell your friends. And remember, if you go to iTunes, like, comment, subscribe. But then we love a live audience. So welcome to Behind the Lens. What are you doing in there today, Brian?
Well, I figured out what happened at the beginning of the show. Not that anyone's going to hear it because it'll be edited out, but...
Well, if people listening live.
Yes, for the live audience, someone hit shuffle on my playlist.
Oh.
So that's what was going on. So, because I was looking at it, like, why did it jump to another thing that I had?
Yeah, I was going to say, that jumped way up.
Yep, so it's fixed now.
No, well, that's a good thing to know. And for those of you who tried to listen in last week, again, we had a cyber attack on the radio station, on the website and streaming functions, that what appeared to be Islamic terrorist. So we were not out live. I don't even know when the station came back up live last week, but everything is working. It is all A-OK. Firewalls are in place. So there should be nothing interrupting our broadcast today unless Brian does something funny with the buttons.
Unless I interrupt it.
Unless you interrupt it.
Which I'm one to do.
Of course you do. Well, and today I'm very excited with our guest today. I have to say, though, one of our guests last week, Malcolm Carter, the writer-director of The Connected Universe, which you can currently find available everywhere digitally and on VOD. Amazing, amazing documentary. Malcolm he's what has to be described as a humanitarian filmmaker with over 455 films to his credit at this point, all about issues. And with Rogue One approaching us and our impending Star Wars countdown, what the Connected Universe talks about is the Force from a mathematical and scientific standpoint. The Force that we have heard talked about in Star Wars for the past 40 years. It is a very real, provable mathematical and scientific event. The documentary is fabulous, and I can't encourage all, if you want to hear a really fascinating discussion, check us out on our show from last week on iTunes, my website, or some other places. And if you can, see The Connected Universe, because it is absolutely fabulous. But today, we got some fabulous stuff today. I'm very excited with our first caller today. Filmmaker, writer, director, producer, and actor CHRIS Cordone. Chris, many of our regular listeners will remember, was with us back in May when his film, STEVIE-D, was on the festival circuit. Well, STEVIE-D has a distribution deal. It opens in Limited in Los Angeles on Friday, is available next week on VOD. And Chris is back here today to talk about the continuation of his journey and the making of STEVIE-D. And then at 11:30 or right around there, we've got another filmmaker, writer-director, Christopher Boone, who has this it is a charming little gem called Sense, with some breakout young actresses. And it's told from the perspective of, it's set in the world of adolescent teen girls. And it involves math as well. So I can't wait to talk to Chris. I mean, he made Chris number 2. He made the film essentially with his daughter in mind. So I want to find out how a dad gets into the mindset of his 12-year-old daughter. I don't think mine ever did, thank God. But right now, I think it's time for Brian's favorite part of the show. As he nods, the Star Wars Countdown.
We've a mission for you.
Ready?
Just gonna let that play. Gonna fade that out. All right, there it is. It's here. I don't open up the tab here. I have it bookmarked when Rogue One was going to come out, and if you've been following the program, if you're new to the show, we do look at the Star Wars countdown. We do both films, and we used to start off with Episode 8, and we switched over when we got to 90 days. We've actually been doing this countdown
About 7 months now.
Yeah. So we were like at the 200-day mark, watching this calendar go down. And if you go back to the podcast, which you should because they're timeless programs, they're not really tied into any holiday or anything.
No.
Go check out any of the podcasts. You'll hear me talking about this. But finally, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story opens up in 10 days, 12 hours, 52 minutes. And as soon as I'm done speaking this sentence, 48 seconds to go. It's here. It's full-blown here. We've seen all the merchandise come out with Nissan, with Gillette. I showed the trailer earlier.
You saw that. I had not seen the Gillette merchandise. Brian enlightened me on that. We have anxiously been awaiting this. Brian is the Disney merchandise team's dream because he pays attention to all of the merchandising for things, as well as pricing of DVDs and Blu-rays, which he talks about on his podcast later this afternoon, the Nothing in Particular podcast. That I think I may be doing that with him today. We're waiting to find out if some publicists timely email me.
Yes, Debbie's been a part of the program the last couple of weeks, and it's very. I'm grateful that she's a part of it because she has insight to the business. You having done this way longer than I have, and I appreciate you being here. But we're both Star Wars fans. I think that's what bonded us together.
Yes, very, very much so. And of course, I don't know if you were listening this morning, Brian, but they're as of 10 p.m. tonight. They are shutting down portions of Hollywood Boulevard for the premiere, which is going to be Saturday the 10th. And it looks like it's going to be around the Pantages.
And is that an exclusive event? Is that just press only, or is that...
That's the world premiere, and I haven't seen my invitation to cover it yet.
Neither have I.
Well,
let me know.
Yeah, well, the last few they've had, they limit... It's become all about mommy bloggers and who will get the most hits and clicks as opposed to substance and content.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the trend now, but that'll eventually fade out. Like
it will.
Else does.
I've seen it come and go over the years, and I'm the one that's still standing after 29 years.
Facebook is going to take care of that because they just recently, not that we're going to get into a lot of discussion about this, but Facebook has a tab now where you can report fake news.
Yes,
so
I know.
Certain websites that have that generate
the clickbait,
they will no longer be available online like that. But if you're not Star Wars, Episode 8 is not clickbait. It's not going to, because the more I look at Rogue One, the more I miss Rey and Finn. But Star Wars Episode 8 comes out in 374 days, 12 hours, and 50 minutes to go for that one. So that one, I mean, we're looking at it now, but eventually, sometime next year, we'll be doing this.
Well, and then never fear, because once Rogue One premieres, once it opens on the 16th, well, then we can start doing countdowns for the Han Solo standalone.
Yes.
And some of the others. So
there's a Yoda film in works also, a young Yoda. Which I like the Han one too.
Yeah, I love both the concepts for both, so I really want to see how that plays out. But, so we'll be having Star Wars Countdown for some time to come.
It'll be next week, too. Will be the final Rogue One Star Wars Countdown, and then
I know
we just stay with Episode 8. But I got my ticket for opening day.
You did?
I'm going to be there opening day. Well, not opening night, but opening day.
Okay, I know. For those of you that listen, Brian has been chomping at the bit and dying as to when he could get his advance ticket for Star Wars Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and thankfully he finally did, because his camping out just. I don't know, the stench of him camping out and not bathing all of these months waiting to get a ticket was just too much. And he didn't have his headphones on, so he didn't hear what I just said.
I heard everything you said about my stench and my bathing habits. I'll have you know, I wash once a week.
Even while you're waiting in line to get your Star Wars tickets.
It rained a couple days ago, so I got my wash there.
Okay, you got your wash.
Just walked over to the CVS.
And we all heard a phone ring, so I am thrilled to welcome back now the wonderful CHRIS Cordone. Hello, Chris.
Hello. So great to be back.
I am so excited and so thrilled. I don't know if Mitch told you what was happening the minute he sent me the email about distribution on STEVIE-D, and I just sent back a hysterical yes email. I was so thrilled that you got a distribution deal on STEVIE-D, because I just think it is so creative, it is so innovative, it's so funny and fun.
Thank you so much, and you also know how hard it is to get these deals, on any level. So, I really appreciate your praise, and it's just a wonderful place to be right now, to have this out for everyone to see it, not just on the festival circuit and not just being passed around to various executives around town.
Yes, some obviously actually watched it.
Yes.
No, obviously, since you got a distribution deal. Who is distributing?
Yeah. It's a New York-based company called Candy Factory Films. They've probably come about in the last 5 to 7 years, and they've been kind of slowly building their catalog and focusing primarily on digital releases, because they just feel that's, a lot of these young companies, I say young being both young in terms of they haven't been around a while, and young because they're run by young people.
Very much so.
They feel that that is the platform of the future, and that's where their focus is. We're fortunate in our case that we have a theatrical release happening this Friday at the Laemmle Music Hall in Beverly Hills, which one is, for old-fashioned people like me and probably you and a lot of the film-loving world, it's just great to know that movies can still play in theaters, and smaller movies as well. And and also it's just catching up the industry and media to the revolution has not been easy, and it's just a lot easier to get people to notice a film if it's playing in the theater. These new platform releases, whether it's day and date, which is both the theater and digital at the same time, or whether it's strictly digital, even though a lot of the new voices are in these platforms, it's still very hard to get people to take them seriously, I guess, or to give them as much weight. So we're lucky that we have both.
I mean, I am just absolutely thrilled that you do have distribution on this one, and that it is, that you do have LA at the Laemmle Music Hall, which is, it's a lovely little theater for these little indie gems. Yeah,
it definitely is. The Laemmle team, in particular, Greg Laemmle, has been a supporter of not just art house films, but all kinds of indie films, that films that are looking for Academy qualification or some kind of awards qualification, or films that just need a place to be seen, and they've been supportive of that, in addition to all of the great documentaries and foreign films that they show. This past week, they've been showing a lot of films that had been released earlier in the year, movies like Miles Ahead with Don Cheadle, and that's great for us because our trailer's running, so it's getting exposure to a different audience,
And, of course, Miles Ahead is another just amazing film. Amazing film.
Yeah, I'm a big Miles Davis fan, and I was quite thrilled that they picked that point in time. I read it in his autobiography, but I didn't know a lot about really what was going on. I don't think anybody did, but I just thought it was a particularly interesting perspective, and one that you would expect someone like Don Cheadle to bring to it. Everybody has kind of blue in their collection. Like we know what was happening in the 50s, but that was interesting because so much was changing. So
And-
yeah, I'm glad that that's getting some more another look.
And as his directorial debut, it just that was unbelievable with the visual look, the tone, his use of camera work. Just an outstanding job.
Yeah.
And talk about outstanding job. STEVIE-D isn't too shabby itself.
Thank you.
Now-
Thank you. Yeah.
now
Well, we're very happy with certainly what we have, what we're able to put together. I mean, it's a low budget film, but from a production value perspective, and this is I think the good thing about the festival run was that it gave us the confidence to see how people reacted to the film in a few different cities in various parts of the country, and we sold out several shows. We had packed Q&As, and people really bought into it, and that gave us confidence that we were able to pull off, for not a lot of money, something that we think reflects a much larger kind of production. And of course, we have the talent in the film too, which is what I'm particularly grateful for. Last time I was on the show, I had Spencer Garrett.
Spencer was on.
And he's, fantastic in it, but Kevin Chapman as well.
And then, of course, you get Hal Linden.
Hal Linden.
Come on. You get Hal Linden, Chris. How do you get, for your first writing directorial debut, how do you get Hal Linden?
It's a good question. I had been looking for some in my mind, casting in my mind someone for that part, and I wanted somebody. I didn't want the shuffling, bumbling agent that we've seen kind of a lot of times in TV and film. And I was listening to a satellite radio station that plays a lot of jazz and Sinatra and that kind of thing. And Hal was actually he was guest DJing, and I heard his voice, and it was so vibrant, and he was a musician, so he was particularly well spoken too. And I thought, well, he'd be perfect. So I just asked my casting directors, Karina Walters and Kevin Mockren. They had seen him come up for different things, and they thought he's available. Let's send it to him. And he responded to it, and that was how we got him. We only needed him for a day. That helped. That always helps when you can really limit people's times in projects like this, because you don't have a lot of money to throw at them. And he just really responded to the character and came in, and he worked so hard. I mean, he never put the script down. I have stills of him on set reading his little monologue, over and over again. And he brought wardrobe suggestions. He had suggestions for what he wanted in his office, what he didn't want in there. I mean, he's a pro. He's why you do this, Guys, you can learn from guys like that.
Now, how does that impact you as a director going forward to get input like that from a veteran like Hal Linden?
Well, it's funny. It was actually our first day of shooting too, so I was a little bit nervous because then I remembered I had also be in the scene with him. So I was like, "Oh, that's right. I've got to act with Hal as well." It again, it was just confidence. It really helped. It helped all of us on set. Even I remember our DP Paul McIlvaine, because he has to get a feel for things too. Everybody needs to get their momentum, get their rhythm on that first day, and Hal kind of came in with a lot of energy and a lot of stature, and that just pushed everybody forward. So for that, it helped a lot. He came to the screening at the Newport Beach Film Festival, which was wonderfully generous of him, and we did a Q&A there. He's going to do one at the Laemmle too. I'm not sure which night yet, but it's probably going to be Saturday or Sunday night. And it's the first time he'd seen the film, and he came up to me after. He just says, "Boy, that came together great," and that was so wonderful for me to hear that.
Well, yeah, and I think it's a testament not only to Hal but to your other actors as well. I mean, Spencer's been around forever. John Aprea is just amazing.
Yeah.
Eric Edelstein has been popping up on all kinds. This has been the year of Eric Edelstein.
Yeah.
And Eric's done the show a couple times already.
Yep.
But I'm glad you mentioned your cinematographer, Paul McIlvaine, because your cinematography, the look of this film, there are moments you've got a noir-ish sensibility, but you have your steady stream of comedy. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition that you have designed here. But the look that Paul gives this, be it from, Hal's character of Max Levine, his darker office, to the bright, glorious, sunlit, sun-drenched poolside, white on white blue skies of STEVIE-D's, being played by Michael, exterior plush, mob sun surroundings. It's just a beautiful, beautiful look to the film.
Yeah, he did a great job. And again, we didn't have the luxury of picking our locations all over LA. We had to really be selective. And Paul worked with our production designer, Brandy Mosh, for the interiors that we could control, to work with color, to make sure that he had some texture that he could work with. And Paul is known in town as being one of the most sought after lighting technicians, or kind of head gaffers. But he likes to shoot in his spare time when he's not working. So, he was bringing a lot of different, perspective to this, having worked on a lot of great projects. And we both loved the look of, it's no secret, but the look of Chinatown, which had LA at a different period in time. But we wanted that kind of noirish look. But we also had to acknowledge that there's a lot of funny stuff in here too. We just didn't have a lot of resources to do tricky shots. We didn't have a dolly. We didn't have a crane. We couldn't do anything like that. We were shooting with old lenses from the '60s. So there's a little bit of, as Paul likes to say, grit in the shot, which helps, I think, because you're shooting digitally, and it gives it more of a film look. I mean, we can't do what John Alonzo did in Chinatown, but we could at least come close to that sort of look. And the noir-ish thing is something I wanted to have as well, because these characters, I mean, there's some bad stuff going on. We don't want to ignore that, but there is that, I think, that undercurrent of humor and lightness to it.
Yeah, and I just think you just find that balance perfectly. And I mean, I've been a huge fan of Paul's his lighting work for years. Vanishing on 7th Street, absolute stunner.
Yeah, that's right.
If anybody really wants to see a film where light is, I would say it makes up 80%. The use of light and the lighting makes up 80% of that film. Amazing job. Yeah. Amazing work there. But then you also, I got to say, kudos. We didn't get to talk to him back in May, about him back in May, but your editor, Bill Sebastian, because of the fact you're playing two roles. Yeah. You're playing the actor, nice guy Michael, and you're playing the douchey STEVIE-D, right. Mafia's son. Bill does an incredible job, because while you're embodying two different characters, the editing is actually done so that we get the sense of two distinct characters. So often when you have one actor, you can see it with The Parent Trap. You can see it even in some of the Patty Duke episodes, because the demeanor and the look isn't changing as much, but the editing is crisp, and it's done utilizing some of Paul's different camera angles. And it just... There's
a little bit of both in there. But the thing I think that you touched on is that what Bill got, Bill's a director too, and he got sort of the feel of what we were trying to do without... I didn't get to sit alongside and work with him for the beginning part of that process. He was working on it, and then I came in and gave notes, and that's just part of low-budget filmmaking, because time isn't so much the issue. It's just like... It's more about finding other people their spare time to work, and editing a feature takes a lot of time, so he was doing it for us sort of on his downtime from other projects, and he got what Paul was trying to do. We tried to shoot Stevie's scenes a little bit differently. We tried to use longer lenses, partly because we didn't really want to do a lot of close-ups on Stevie, because then you start to notice too many similarities in the characters. Right. What are you going to do? You can't avoid that. It's the same guy.
You look good no matter what. So
yeah. So we, and then Bill got that, and then mostly I think he got the rhythm right, and he made, a lot of the passages just move so quickly. I mean, it's, it's a little under 2 hours, the film. And we probably by design would have wanted to be a little bit, under that, but there's a lot in there. There's a lot of storylines in there, and we tested and ran, and we asked people, and the comment that we kept getting back was like, I never checked my watch. I didn't know it was it just was over. It moved so quickly, and I think that was really a lot had to do with Bill.
Yeah, no, the pacing is perfect, and when it ends, and I think I said this to you before, when it ends, it's like, oh my God, it's over already.
Yeah, a lot of people asked us, geez, I wanted to hear more about this person or that person and whatnot. I was like, well, we're out of time, because you're starting to go into Goodfellas territory if you get much longer than that, and it's not that kind of film, and certainly for a first feature, I don't think anyone's got the right to do that.
So now you've got the distribution deal. Everybody will be able to see STEVIE-D now. Is there a chance that we will see STEVIE-D come back in a sequel? We're
working on STEVIE-E right now, as a matter of fact. No, I think it actually, just because we're now in the world of what can be done on television, I could see somebody wanting to maybe, think about the story in terms of a television episodic.
I think it would be perfect.
It could be funny for that. It could be very funny. I mean, I battled the time element in writing the script and executing the script, which was how do we get this story told before time just starts to really play on people's suspension of disbelief. Mm-hmm. But I think you could probably, with some very creative people, work around that, in the film in the television setting. So that's a possibility. I mean, I'm going in a different direction. I haven't done anything with it other than, I haven't done anything with it.
You haven't done anything with it. Yeah, okay. Okay, is it all? It's all a blur. It's all a blur. You've been in a whirlwind.
Yeah, no. I mean, my writing has gone in a different direction, and I'm hoping to get a couple of things into production, or I'm hoping to get one of a couple of things into production next that would be totally different from STEVIE-D, but I certainly would welcome the opportunity to revisit it in a different kind of format or something along those lines.
So what is it that you are working on now?
Well, I have a 2-year-old, which is what I spend most of my time working on.
Okay, that is what you're working on, the 2-year-old.
But I wrote a script with one of the actors in the film, plays one of the FBI agents, Guy Camilleri. He had an idea for a script. I wrote it, and then we collaborated on it. It's kind of a much more traditional noir type of film, and it takes place in sort of the surfing world, if you can believe that, noir surfing story. And I would really like to do that next. I think it would be easy to do just from a production perspective. But I mean, I think it's also something that people are very into right now, that surfing culture, and it's really just the backdrop for the film. But I would imagine that would get some attention pretty quickly in town, even just from talent that would want to do that kind of story.
Now,
then I've got another story that I'm working on, which is more of a private eye, also in the noir-ish world, a private eye story, but set in a different era, and with some different kinds of characters that we haven't seen in that genre. Which I think, again, looking at where we are now in film world, that people want to see different kinds of characters and don't want to see the same old thing over and over again. So I'm hoping that'll catch on as well. And really, it's just a matter of this film getting some exposure. That'll help me get other people interested in my stories. It's hard to line up your next project when you in the indie world you put so much into getting that one thing out there, and it's your calling card, and you're behind it with all of your effort and time and money. It's not like you've got 10 people behind you working on your next thing or whatever. That'll come hopefully in the future.
Now, with these other projects, would they be something for you to direct and star in as well? Or are you going to cut back on the number of hats you're wearing in a production?
For me as an actor, and part of that was by design. I mean, I just wanted to think outside my world for a minute. I mean, certainly my world is what I've experienced, but not what I've observed, So what I've observed is certainly in there, but I would like to just direct a film next because I would like to do one with a real budget and kind of a real platform of pre-production and having your keys involved all the way. I mean, that's the thing with indie film. I mean, you only get a couple weeks to really prep and work with your keys, and it's just hard to do it right. Mm-hmm. I think we were lucky. So I'd like to direct something next. I mean, I certainly wouldn't turn down any acting work, but it's for me it's always been about this. What I was able to do with Stevie is always what I wanted to do, which was to write and develop projects. I thought that when I came out here as an actor a number of years ago, I thought that I would move along more quickly as an actor and be able to do things a lot more easily, but that didn't happen like for just about everybody else. It doesn't happen that way. You have to adapt and adjust. And
yeah, you need to be on the 20-year plan. You need the 20-year plan.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for joining me again today. It is always so much fun to have you, and I am just so thrilled that everybody can now laugh and enjoy STEVIE-D this Friday at the Laemmle in Beverly Hills and next Tuesday everywhere on VOD and digital.
That's right, correct. DirecTV and Dish and all that other stuff. And thank you so much for being such a fan and for having me on twice, and such a wonderful show, and I'm just very grateful.
Oh, well, thank you, Chris. And you're going to come back again, right?
I will, definitely.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Ed.
Bye-bye. And that was the wonderful writer, director, actor, CHRIS Cordone, talking STEVIE-D. We're going to take a quick... Brian, can we do a quick break? Okay, we're going to do a quick break and hear about Crazy Bitches 2.
It's time to get crazy with Crazy Bitches 2. That's right. The team behind Crazy Bitches is back and needs your help to bring Crazy Bitches 2 to life. You can back the film and do your holiday shopping at the same time, thanks to fun swag and exciting opportunities that will ship just in time to put under or on your tree. Christmas ornaments turn deadly when mommies behave badly and someone can't take it anymore. So go crazy. Join the Crazy Bee Nation and go to the Indiegogo campaign at igg.me/@/CrazyBS2. Crazy Bee Nation. Crazy Bitches 2.
And what? I don't know what Brian is doing in there today.
The shuffle's on.
The shuffle's on.
I don't know how to turn it off.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, fine. Well, you're back listening to Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic and creator and host of this glorious program. You just heard CHRIS Cordone talking about STEVIE-D. And now we're going to continue today's Battle of the Chris's with Christopher Boone. Hello, Christopher.
Hey, how are you, Debbie?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I am just thrilled to have you on. Your film Sense, and for those listening, it's spelled CENTS. This was so original and so creative with your storyline. We have not seen this particular look getting inside the head of 12 and 13-year-old girls before.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was one of my goals, so I'm glad it worked for you.
So, briefly tell our listeners what Sense is about, and then I need an answer to the big question: how did you get inside the head of a 12-year-old girl to come up with this film?
Sure. So, I guess briefly, Sense is a story of a crazy smart 12-year-old 7th grade girl named Sammy, who uses her gift for mathematics and enlist her frenemies to revamp the school penny drive into a major money-making operation. And all the while, she's also kind of struggling with the relationship with her mom, Angela, who is a nurse practitioner trying to get into medical school for the umpteenth time. And Sammy's also trying to keep her math teacher and mentor, Miss Dyer, at bay, even though Miss Dyer is trying to really nurture Sammy's mathematical gifts and also kind of steer her along the right path. So that's essentially the story in a nutshell. To your other question about how did I get into the head of a 12-year-old girl? That's a good question.
Because you actually have 4 principal 12-year-old girls here, and each one, I mean, for all the women out there, you know how rapier and how dangerous it is. And frenemies, nobody is a true friend. They are all frenemies for one reason or another.
Yeah, and so I have a daughter, and when I first thought of the story idea, actually, before I even started working on it, my daughter was much younger. She was, I don't know, probably about 8 years old, I guess. And being a dad, I had no idea what it would be like for her to, what it was going to be like for her to go through adolescence. And so I started actually doing research on it and was shocked and terrified, actually, to learn about some of the stories that were going on with young women heading into adolescence and how they were using social media, but also just looks and other nonverbal forms of communication, but also things that were going on under the radar screen when it came to adults not really being aware of how they were treating one another. So again, that was terrifying as a father, but I thought it would make for a really good story, or at least environment for a story. So I started to work on that and worked with actually a lot of middle school students on other projects that they were working on, film-related projects, and kind of got to know them really well. And just while we were working on those projects, just sat back and observed as we went. So that definitely helped with writing the story. From doing that research, it kind of helped me understand the different aspects of how these girls would interact with one another. And again, I just thought that would be a fantastic world to set a movie in.
Well, and you develop all the characters so extremely well, not just the girls, but also, Sammy's mother, Angela, who is very disinterested and removed from her daughter's life and from her world. And you mentioned the character of Ms. Dyer, who is, I have to say it, next to the character of Sammy, my favorite character in this film, because she is a teacher who really does care. She is the teacher that everybody remembers from some time in their life. She is the one that is going to make sure that child sees their full potential. And we don't see enough of that portrayed on screen. So, I mean, I applaud you for the character of Miss Dyer.
Well, thank you. And I'd heard stories both before I made the film and then after showing it to some people too, from other women who are now adults that said that they're engineers or they work in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math, and they said they didn't even consider having pursuing a career in those areas until someone in their lives, usually a teacher or some sort of a mentor, came up to them and asked them if they had ever thought about it, and then pushed them as well as encouraged them to, really reach their potential. And so I thought it would be great to have a character like that in the film, but also one that wasn't going to take a lot of crap, for lack of a better word, from our main character. So she was going to really hold her to whatever arrangements they had made, and she knew she's going to have to let that young girl make mistakes, but she wasn't going to let her go too far off that path. She was going to try to keep her in line some way. So she's got to make mistakes and learn from them, but she's also going to make sure that she's going to reach that potential and she's going to push her there. And that does lead to conflict and arguments. As far as the character of Angela, it definitely, I think, point in their lives in the story as we're telling it, it does seem like she is disconnected from her daughter and they are having this struggle. And yet I feel like everything that she does is actually because she cares so much about her daughter, and she's just forgotten that she isn't actually paying any attention to her. And she's just lost track of what's going on in her own daughter's life. And she's told herself that everything that she's doing is for her daughter without realizing that she needs to actually have a relationship with her daughter. And unfortunately, as parents, I think there are times where we don't realize that we're not paying the closest attention to our kids for whatever reason. Sometimes we have good intentions, but we need to make sure that we're still tuned in. And I think it's a challenge, too. She's a single parent, and I tip my hat to all single parents. I really do not know how they do it. And so I wanted to at least show someone who I thought was a strong yet flawed character trying to show her daughter the way in the world, and yet, failing at the same time. And I think that makes it a more realistic portrayal of that relationship.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I love the fact that you picked math and you picked this idea of, this penny campaign that the school does, but it essentially is. It boils down to a pyramid scheme, and you address that, but you really hone in on the benefits of math and science and intelligence. And quite honestly, I think the timing for Sense now being available digitally and on VOD is perfect because of the upcoming major feature, Hidden Figures, about the 3 NASA mathematicians and scientists that were female.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see Hidden Figures. We've actually promoted it on our Facebook page.
I'm embargoed, but all I'll tell you is you are going to love it.
Yeah, I really can't wait for it. And that's the thing is I want to see more stories like that. I mean, I think there are lots of stories, both true and in our case is obviously fictional, but where we can see characters that we don't typically see in these roles. And I think we just need more of that. And that was one of the things that people had asked me about, why is Sammy Latina? And so I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and so why shouldn't she be? And then what I realized was when I made that decision, when I was writing, just coming up with the story, yes, that would maybe create a slightly different dynamic than if she wasn't, but also I didn't necessarily need to delve into it much further. And what I appreciate is hearing from audience members who have said, thank you for making this character Hispanic, making her Latina, showing us strong women in these roles, and yet letting them also make mistakes. And I had one parent actually say to me, and thank you for not having a boy somehow swoop in and save the day.
Yes.
And I never wanted to have that because I don't feel, again, that's true to life. And it wasn't ever the story I wanted to tell. So I appreciate when I hear that kind of feedback, and hopefully it does touch people no matter who you are, whether or not you like math. It doesn't matter if you're young or if you're old. Hopefully you see something of yourself in some of these characters. And if you have a passion, if you have a gift, that you don't actually hide it, that you try to pursue it and share it with others.
Now, part of a little indie gem like this are a lot of new discoveries. And you really have a new discovery in this film in the form of Julia Flores, who plays Sammy.
I absolutely agree. I felt extremely lucky when I found Julia. In fact, we found all of our actresses are local, but we have a large film base here in New Mexico because of our tax incentives. So everyone obviously knows about Breaking Bad, but we're constantly shooting films and TV series here in Albuquerque and Santa Fe and all around the state. And as a result of that, we have an amazing talent base when it comes to acting. And so we were able to cast everything locally. We actually found Julia really early in the process before we even did our Kickstarter campaign. We were casting for a teaser that we were going to shoot ahead of that Kickstarter campaign. And we couldn't even cast that wide of a net just based on time and resources. And Julia happened to walk in. And I was absolutely floored when she did this small little scene for us. And I thought, I really need to make this movie soon so she doesn't age out. And so I was lucky that we were actually able to pull everything together in time and actually have her play that role. And I think it's a challenging role for any actress, but in many respects, Julia is nothing like that character. In fact, I've had people who worked on the film, especially in post-production, say they were shocked to find out that she's totally different in her nature and demeanor. Obviously, the one similarity, and if she was here with us, she would say the same thing, is that she's incredibly intelligent and she likes math. But other than that, she's 180 degrees different from the character Sammy. I think that just goes to show the strength of her performance. She was incredibly professional, and I asked a lot of her because there are so many scenes where she doesn't get to say anything. And she has to convey through her actions and her facial expressions and in her eyes just really what's going on inside of that head of hers. And I couldn't be more proud of her performance. And if she, hopefully will continue to pursue this because I think she has a lot to offer. At the same time, she has a lot to offer the world no matter what. So I look forward to Julia's future, whatever it may be.
Well, she was going to be joining us today, but she has a final exam today.
She does, yeah. She was all prepared to do it. Apparently, she was sick last week, and so she had a makeup exam. She apologizes.
Oh no,
speak for herself.
School is much more important, important. But as I'm watching Julia, all I could think about, she so reminds me of Eliza Dushku. Everybody knows Eliza for her role as Faith in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a lot of those same tendencies and nuances and facial expressiveness. And I just think Julia's got a very, very bright future ahead of her. And your other girls as well. They just complement each other so beautifully. You've got Lily, who plays the character of Katie. You've got Jai, who plays Hannah. Very much a Vanessa Hudgens, Demi Lovato look going on. And Claire Carter. I mean, just a really wonderful foursome that you came up with.
We were really fortunate when these young actresses came to us, and we saw a lot of kids. Again, it was all local. But once I found these 4 girls, I was really excited because I feel like they understood the characters really well. They're all extremely intelligent, so they all came to me with great questions about the characters and trying to understand the story and where their characters fit into the story. One of the best parts early on was Lily coming to me during the shoot and saying, God, this is exactly what 7th grade was like. And they're all very close to the age of the characters too, but they had all at least gone through 7th grade. And so it was fresh in their minds. But it was interesting to hear her say that. I think both good and bad, but they really could relate to the characters themselves, their motivations, sometimes the confusion of the characters and why they were even doing certain things. And that's one of the weird things I think about this early part of adolescence, where you're really trying to figure out your way. And you sometimes do things that you don't even realize why you're doing it, and it's going to hurt somebody that you actually like, but you're concerned about your own popularity. And one of the things I really wanted to look into was just how, at that early age, we have trouble seeing 2 inches in front of our faces. And we don't understand the consequences of our actions until they circle back on us. And then once they do, whether or not we have the emotional maturity and wherewithal to actually maybe make some different choices as we move forward. And so Sammy has to deal a lot with that. But working with Lily and Claire and Jai alongside Julia was just a pleasure. Not only were they fantastic in the film, but they were just a lot of fun to be around on the set, and just brought a lot of life and joy to the set every day.
Well, because this is your first feature, stepping behind the camera, there's always a learning curve involved with that. And you very keenly brought on Corey Weintraub as your cinematographer. I'm a huge fan of Corey's work as a camera operator and working with Dana Gonzalez with Rick Waugh on Felon. So I was thrilled. I was curious to see what Corey would bring as a cinematographer here. And I got to say, the look of the film, you've got a very naturalistic look going on. Was this something that you and Corey decided on early on? How did you approach the film? Once you had your casting in place, you had your story in place, how did you approach this from a technical standpoint?
Yeah, I really wanted to work with Corey for a while. He's here locally, but he's shot on a lot of things both here and in California and around the country. So I felt really lucky that he wanted to come on board to work on this project. And a lot of the things that I had seen of his that I like are actually darker in nature. And so we had a lot of really candid conversations about what I was looking for in terms of look and feel. And to your point, a really naturalistic style is what I wanted. I really like films that are shot on the shoulder and really put you in the place of the characters so you feel like you're a part of their world. So that when we decided to, say, pull back and have a really composed shot, or we really thought carefully about how we're going to move the character if it wasn't on the shoulder. That's where I got really excited working with Corey, because he could bring a lot of that to the table. And again, I'd only had the ability to do short films of my own, but being able to work on this as a full feature and tell the story and really think a lot about how the cinematography was going to play into that story was a lot of fun. Again, working with Corey. And what was great about Corey as well was we actually sat down for a full week and we storyboarded the whole thing. And Corey loves to draw. So we literally just sat at a booth at a local restaurant every day, all day, and just drew out the entire story. I had shot lists, but I'm no artist. So it was great to do that. And because we're indie film and short schedule, those storyboards were invaluable because we were always running and gunning, and we could always just pull out that binder and say, okay, this is what we got to get covered today. And Corey totally saved me on one day. We actually had a fire alarm go off at the school where we were shooting because there was a brush fire nearby, and it was causing smoke coming up through some school vents. And so we were kicked out of the building for a full hour after lunch, and when we came back in, we had less than an hour to shoot one of our pivotal scenes in the cafeteria, including, I guess, a small stunt, if you will, and I had no idea how we were going to get it done, and Corey just stepped in and said, I got it. I think this is what we need to do. We threw 3 cameras at it. He walked me through how he thought we would get the coverage.
Wow.
He said, you just work with the talent, and I'll make sure you get what you need. And we were off to the races. And then with my editor and my post-production sound team, it's one of my favorite scenes in the film, and I still can't believe we actually got it done. So, again, huge kudos to Corey, and super talented. I can't wait to work with him again.
I mean, he truly is. He's one of the best guys out there. And, you know, as I said, I know his work from working with Dana and Rick. And, you know, because I know Felon was a very, very tough shoot with close quarters and cramping and trying to get some claustrophobic and some really specific POV angles. So I was thrilled to see that here he got to keep it natural, but he got to open up the framing.
Yeah.
The two of you really opened up the frame.
Yeah, Corey's always open for challenges. He always wants to push himself. I think he is incredibly talented. He also works with a lot of local filmmakers here, like Scotty Molitor and Hannah McPherson, who's now out in LA as well. He's a close collaborator with the two of them. And yeah, I really don't think there's anything Corey can't do. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing more and more of his work. So again, I'm a huge supporter of his, and he was just fantastic to work with, great on set. Yeah, just a really talented guy.
So now, what did you take away from the making of Sense that you will now take with you into your next directorial project?
That's a great question. I learned a lot of lessons, made a lot of mistakes. One of the things I really was hoping would come out of this was actually that it would make me a better screenwriter. I think of myself as a screenwriter first and then a director second. And what was interesting was it actually made it harder to write my next script. And I think initially that was because I knew the things that I wanted to do better. And I kept pushing myself in that next script to make sure that it was better. But I also have to realize that it can't ever be perfect, and it never will be. And the last rewrite's the final edit of the film. So until I get there in the next film, I'll still be rewriting the script. So I think that in and of itself was a big lesson to learn. But also just having one under my belt and knowing that finding the right team of actors and crew is extremely important, and relying on their talents and asking for their opinions all along the way. And a great idea can come from anywhere, and making sure to keep my eyes and ears open for those great ideas, and making sure I tap into people's passion for the project, because there's a big reason I don't put my name on the front of the film and I don't have a film by credit, because I think that's I always thought that's kind of ludicrous. So many people actually make the film. I happen to be the writer and I happen to be the director and one of the producers. Yes, I have a vision, but I need everybody to get on board with that vision and share in that vision. So it's all of our vision that actually makes it up on the screen itself. So those are the things that I think I took away from this project. I'm excited to hopefully get to make another film in the future. It's hopefully going to be a little bit funnier than this one. I wanted to do drama first because I thought that's a little bit easier, but I'm actually more naturally drawn towards writing dramatic comedies. And so I'd like to see a little bit more laughter in the audience the next time out. And I'll probably be doing something a little bit more personal as well as it relates to my own life and my own family, trying to get really specific in order to tap into the universal.
Well, right now, Sense is available. It's on every digital platform: iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Vimeo, VHS, Xbox, and every VOD platform out there with everybody: Time Warner, Cox, the whole shebang. So there's no excuse for everybody not to spend a few of their own pennies to take a look at Sense.
Well, thanks so much, Debbie. I appreciate that.
I mean, this is I can't recommend it. It's a great family film. Also, this is one everybody in the family can watch this.
Yeah, that's what we hope too. When we've had screenings, I would get emails and after the fact from mothers who watched it with their daughters and said, we had a long conversation in the car about your movie, but then also things that are going on in school right now that I had no idea about. And your movie kind of opened the door to that. And we've actually had special screenings with different organizations focused on girls of this age. We've worked with Girl Scouts and different Girl Scout councils around the country to have special screenings, and then they do workshops after the film with some discussion guides that we've done for them. So I really do hope that more families sit down and take some time to watch it, and then I hope it provokes some good dialogue and conversation.
Now, is the film still available? Are you still partnered up with Tug for special screenings?
We are. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so if any of your listeners are part of an organization or a school that wants to actually have a screening or license the film for their institution, they can do that through Tug Educational. And if somebody actually loves the film so much and they want to see it in the theater, you can still program it in the theater if you're so inclined as well. So we've used Tug for theatrical screenings as we've taken it out on the road. But yes, it's definitely available and will be for the foreseeable future.
You know, and with all these holiday vacations coming up, you know, parents want to know where their kids are, want to get things together, kids want to get together. It's a perfect opportunity to put together your own screening.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't want to do it in a theater, again, you can license it. And essentially, it's anywhere that you can actually screen the film. You know, it can be a school, rec center, community center, a church, or a private home. But again, you just have to get that license through Tug Educational. And again, we've had it screened in pretty much all of those environments. So it's been interesting and educational as well to be able to offer the film that way. And again, I'm excited for to share the film that way as much as possible.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of Tug, and it's opened up a whole lot. It's opened up a lot of theatrical experiences for people and films that might not have had that opportunity.
Yeah, and again, we've been able to take it out and do little small tours of the Northeast, and then just before our VOD launch, we were in a handful of different cities there too. And you know, I love the theatrical experience. I always knew this film was mainly going to be seen through VOD on iPads, and I welcome that. But being able to actually screen it in a theater with an audience and sometimes have discussions afterwards was really wonderful.
There's nothing better. Now, I want to ask you before we go. I want to ask, are you still writing for No Film School?
Yes, I am. I'm a regular contributor for the site. I don't write as much as I really want to, but I do. And so for anyone who's interested in the making of Sense, they can go to our website, sensethemovie.com, click on the making of link, and I wrote a dozen posts on No Film School going all the way back to before we did our Kickstarter, all the way through this VOD distribution. And No Film School has just been a great outlet to write for. I primarily write about screenwriting, but it's also been really helpful to be able to share my own story with other filmmakers. Hopefully I can share lessons that they can take and use for their own projects.
No Film School is one of my favorite sites. It has been for years.
Yeah, it's a great community, and they're doing an fantastic job. We have an amazing team that came on board earlier this year to take on the editing roles. Liz Nord and Emily Buda are doing a fantastic job there. So I just, again, feel fortunate that I could get to contribute to them when I write about screen narrating and my own film projects.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining me on Behind the Lens today. I hope you'll come back and we can do a whole screenwriting discussion one day.
That would be great. Thanks so much, Debbie. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on.
Oh, my pleasure. And I look forward to talking to you again, Chris.
All right. We'll do that.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was Christopher Boone, concluding our Battle of the Chris's today, talking about his film, Sense. Great family film. Strong, young teenage girl performances. Great story for parents, for kids, and Chris really taps into something we haven't seen. And I know Brian is looking at me because we have, 22 seconds left in today's show. So, is that correct, Brian? He's nodding. He's just not, I don't know what Brian's doing today. He's probably playing with the shuffle button back there. But that is all the time we have today. We'll be back again right here next week. Next week, who do we have next week? We have Sheldon Rainin. Talking about The Killing of America. It's an older film. It's being re-released. Fascinating. He'll be here for the whole show with us. So, tune in, log on next week. Like, comment, subscribe on iTunes. I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.